settle this.
Okay.
Let's settle this.
Very serious question for you. Tacos. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Who loves tacos? Show of hands.
Woo!
I'm winning.
No.
Better yet, Legos. Who loves Legos?
No. Zappos. Who doesn't love shoes? Come on.
Spanx.
See?
Oh.
Who doesn't love Spanx?
What's so great about Spanx?
I was 5'4" before I put these on this morning. They're magical.
You know, she might have won. I think she won. You know what, Karen? I think you might be the only person ever to bring a pair of Spanx to a TED Talk.
I'm okay with that. There's a reason for it. We are doctoral students and scientists and have been studying humor for the last 2 years. We picked Legos, Zappos, and Spanx due to their purposeful use of humor as a part of their company culture and as a differentiator. In our research, we often ask, how funny is your business?
Yes.
But if your experience is anything like ours, it's probably not very funny.
No.
Not so much.
But what if your workplace could be filled with humor?
Humor. Like Legos. For example, their company policy revision is to recruit and hire talented and smart people so that they can build the leaders of tomorrow.
Or Zappos. Part of their core values is to create fun and a little weirdness. Sort of our team mantra. And they're a multi-billion-dollar company. Not too shabby.
Spanx doesn't take itself too serious and calls its products names such as Booty Booster and Braleluya, and they are also a billion-dollar company. So why aren't more companies like this? Very few companies truly embrace the positive benefits of humor in the workplace. There's a big difference between kids and adults when it comes to laughter. One study even says, on average, adults are laughing 300 times per day, kids are laughing 300 times per day, and adults are only laughing 4 times per day.
Yeah, pretty
Kinda
sad.
sad.
Pretty sad.
Yeah.
And that's why we're here today, to share with you the many and sometimes surprising benefits of humor in the workplace and our research that we've called Funny Business. Now, the first part of academic research starts with understanding what's known, and in this case, these companies that we represented using humor to drive both employee engagement and their business results. Now, we don't want to scare anyone off here. You don't need to be a comedian or have any special talents to use humor. No. The scientific definition of humor is quite simple. It's defined as amusing communications that produce positive emotions and cognitions in the individual, group, or organization.
Humor has been scientifically linked to many business benefits, including increased individual and organizational effectiveness, and it also leads to resilience. And resilience is important because it allows people to quickly bounce back from negative events, and this is important. Humor also leads to increased job satisfaction and job performance. It also improves psychological well-being. Alleviating boredom and stress is another benefit of amusing behavior, and it can also build team cohesion. Humor can also lead to laughter. And laughter is important because it reduces tension and stress. We can all benefit from that.
Now, there are many different types of humor. Not all of them are good, but we focus our research on humor that is positive and beneficial in nature. In our Funny Business research, we examined humor and hiring decisions, essentially asking the question, does humor get you hired? In our experiment, we compared humorous and non-humorous candidates for a job interview and found that the humorous candidate was rated significantly more likable compared to the non-humorous candidate. We also asked our participants if they themselves had a sense of humor, and overwhelmingly, 92% of them said that yes, they have a sense of humor. But if you recall, us adults are only laughing on average 4 times per day. So clearly there's a disconnect there.
Now, while our research focused on this one element of humor, hiring, we learned a lot about the benefits of humor. So today we'd like to tell you a few personal stories and then share some practical tips towards the end and ask you to imagine with us how humor could help us all in the workplace. Humor is a behavior that can be learned or strengthened over time, which is why we like to say flexing or strengthening your humor muscle.
Humor can be used to frame the seriousness of our realities in a way that makes dealing with problematic situations a bit more manageable. I spent most of my adult life in the Army, and in this environment, it's common to use humor to deal with things that are idiotic, annoying, or even dangerous. One year I was assigned to work as a liaison officer, and part of my role was to reprocess troops back into the United States that were coming from Afghanistan. These groups were normally comprised of regular Army, National Guard, and Reserve component troops. Now, the difference between these groups is that half of them will be going back to a regular Army installation with all of the support that comes along with that lifestyle, and the other half will be going back to pretty much civilian life, and a society is completely detached from the military. We normally do a brief to reintegrate the troops back into life in the US, but we didn't have time to split them up according to the different groups that they belong to. So we did a combined briefing, and we found someone to stand in to do this briefing that was familiar with both groups of soldiers. This is my boss, Lieutenant Colonel Ty Kundal, and he gave a speech that I'll never forget. And I won't forget it because the effect he had on the room. He said to them, "You all are about to return to a life you left a year ago. You think that you haven't changed that much, but you have. You're probably a bit more morbid than you used to be, and people will probably not get your sense of humor." Then he starts telling them this story about his Afghan deployment a few years prior, and he's in the middle of a firefight with bona fide Taliban closing in on his position. And he notices that there's an argument going on between the medic and a platoon sergeant. And the argument was about whether or not the medic needed to take the trauma shears and remove the platoon sergeant's pants in order to treat a lower extremity wound. Well, the argument really wasn't about that. It was about the fact that the infantry aren't known for wearing underwear. And
No Spanx.
No Spanx. And so the platoon sergeant just wasn't interested in naked combat with the Taliban. And so we're all laughing. Everybody's having a good time at this story that would normally be a near-death experience. The colonel went on to say, yeah, you know what? It's October. Let me make a note of this. Every year, they call this soldier to wish his war wound a happy birthday. We're all laughing, and we're having a good time. But the colonel's point was, even if people don't get your sense of humor, you can use humor to brighten the things that would have a negative outlook or a dark outlook for your life. He then said, a few other things, but what I remember is that him telling this story in that moment allowed other people to recount their deployment experiences, and some of these experiences had the potential to emotionally overwhelm them, but now they had a tool that they could use, humor.
Prior to joining the corporate world where I am today, I was a police officer for almost 10 years. And while on the job, I started a charity organization that brought tactical training to female law enforcement. And every month we would host awesome classes like hostage rescue, close quarter battle, advanced pistol techniques. And we would put flyers up all around the station in order to get the word out about the classes. But one day I walked into the station and saw a new version of our flyers posted. And they said things like sandwich making 101. Dishwashing 101, laundry and folding 101. Some even had my name plastered on them, and they were all around the station. I was horrified, I was humiliated, but I had to do something for my organization, for myself, and for women. So we came up with yet another set of posters to put around the station. And here they are. When we break a nail, it's from reloading. Our favorite pumps are 12 gauge. That one's my favorite. And when we wear an apron, they're made from Kevlar and can stop a hollow point bullet.
Bam! We
attacked those gender stereotypes head on with a little bit of humor, which put us in the driver's seat. We were able to open up a discussion and add some levity to a topic that is sometimes emotionally charged and even hostile at times.
Thank you, Karen. Now, while I'm also ex-military, I'm going to tell you a story about another type of conflict, and that's what can be encountered in the corporate world. But before I get started, I need a little audience participation. So we're all going to get new names today, and here's how it works. Your new name is what you had for lunch and your favorite animal. So my name is Peanut Butter Hawk. Karen?
Kale Kangaroo.
Kale Kangaroo.
We're actually doing this?
Yeah, we're doing this now.
Just for that?
Yeah, they're recording.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Snickerdoodle salamander.
I saw you chowing down
yeah,
back there.
I don't think that's really lunch, but okay, all right. So decide what you want to admit to those two answers being, and then feel free to share your new name with your neighbor. Now the story. As Brandon had shared earlier, the benefits of humor include building team camaraderie, as well as being used as a tool to diffuse tense situations. And work, of course, has no shortage of tense situations. I work in information technology, and back a few years ago, our team was deploying a pretty cool, complex global network for a customer. Simple, so simple. And I'm not going to go into all the gory details and bore you, but cool, complex network deployments really mean a few places to go, uh-oh, or whoa, that did not work the way we thought it would. Our team was working weekends out of an 8-hour day, not really, but let's go with 8 hours, 90% of the time in one meeting or another for months. But this team had the great fortune of being led by a very funny man. No, not you. Let's call him Mr. M. This isn't your story. Okay. So Mr. M gets on to a conference call late in the day, and he says, we're all getting new names today. That's right. And if I remember right, his was as healthy of a choice as yours. He was Pizza Rose Wolf. Anyways, he has us all disclose our names, and we're laughing, but then he adds the further mandate that we have to use these names for the rest of eternity. So there's probably a dozen people on this call, and we have to not only remember our own name, but everybody else's name. So people are laughing and giggling, and they're instant messaging, trying to get everybody's name down. And what had started as a very tense or maybe more stressful call turned into laughter and the playfulness of a group of kindergartners. Now, we still had to get the network working, and we did, and we have a very happy customer. But I think what this story shows us is that humor does have the ability to help build that team cohesion with just a dose or two of good old-fashioned laughing out loud, right? And also can be used to diffuse a tense or a stressful situation. And in the stories that Karen and Brandon shared, humor can be used as a response to workplace harassment, or in another extreme case can be used in a real life and death situation as a coping mechanism.
So deploying humor is easy, and we're going to give you a few simple, easy tips to get started. But like with anything, it is up to you to determine when appropriate, especially in the workplace. So tip number 1, start off your next meeting with something funny. It will set the tone for the entire meeting. This could be a joke, a funny story, or even an embarrassing picture of yourself from high school, like this one.
But you look so cute. She
I'm
looks
going to
so
bring big hair back.
cute.
I'm bringing it back. Or if you're in information technology, you could stress the importance of facial recognition with this image.
Can you tell the difference? I
What
mean,
is
don't they look the same?
What is it?
Right?
Guess is anyone's. Tip number 2, be memorable. Use humor to be memorable. So at your next networking event that you host, and let me say something about networking events. Networking events can be a bit tense and awkward for people, so try to break down some of that tension with humor. So at your next event, ask your attendees to walk up to someone and say something ridiculous. Try this. My name's Brandon. I love the broccoli.
Thought of snickerdoodles.
Well, maybe.
So see, he can eat healthy.
I know, but it doesn't have to be that. It could be anything. But if you incentivize these interactions, it'll be less tense for everyone there, and it will cause people to remember the attendees and the event itself.
Tip number 3, start out your next conference call or web meeting with a brain teaser or a joke or a riddle where you don't divulge the answer until the end of the call. We've done this in a few of our meetings, and it helps people stay engaged until the end of the meeting when they get to hear the highly sought-after answer. Now, most people don't get this, but there's 2 thes in the triangle.
Tricky.
Tricky.
So we encourage you to give humor a try at your next meeting, networking event, conference call, or even to diffuse tense situations.
On average, in our lifetime, we spend over 90,000 hours at work, a third of our lives. That's a lot of time.
It's a lot of time.
a lot of
Shouldn't
time.
we purposefully use that time to make life and work as fun as possible, as real as possible, as human as possible?
To quote Maya Angelou, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but they will never forget the way you made them feel. And we totally agree. That's why we feel so strongly that humor and business go together. That's what funny business is all about.
We hope to have left you to reimagine how humor can help us all at work. We're bringing the funny to business, and we're asking you to do the same.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.